My name is Maya Sybil. I'm a reporter and content producer at fundoperator.com. And today I am joined by Lucia Labuzikova, founder and CEO of Labuzik Institute. And Labuzik focuses on human engineering, meaning, and human due diligence for funds, talent development, team talent matrix for companies, and cultural integration. Hi, Lucia. It is wonderful to have you here today.
Hi, Maya. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So Lucia will be speaking on day 3 of the Fund Operator Summit Live on November 17th in London, and she is on the Fund HR Talent and Inclusion Forum, specifically in a panel called How Can We Address Individual Visibility in a Remote Working World, Ensuring a Balance Between Individual Opportunities and Meeting Business Needs. And the panel runs from 12:50 to 1:30 p.m. So wonderful. And we're just going to dive straight in with the first question. So how do you balance personal needs with business productivity and success, especially considering what we saw at the end of 2021 and at the beginning of 2022 with the so-called Great Resignation?
Thank you, Maya. Fantastic question. And while I see a connecting aspect between personal needs and the Great Resignation, the way to solve the Great Resignation and to lower your people leaving rate is to balance the personal and business needs. That is at the very core. And I'll be very specific when answering the question. And so I wanted to say that during the COVID pandemics and the lockdowns, the world really went through a great global stressor, perhaps the greatest imaginable, which led to remote working. The reason why I'm mentioning is this because I reckon that the Great Resignation is actually linked to the what is called endowment effect, which is in behavioral economics, it teaches us that people do not like to give up on what they have acquired. So we are very loss averse by nature. Similarly, many people working in hybrid and fully remote setting have come to expect permanent remote flexibility. Now let's address the personal needs and the business productivity and success. Balancing personal needs with business productivity and success sounds a bit like a rocket science. While it's really a straightforward, what I like to call a Lego play. Lego play, metaphorically speaking, because when you focus on the right pieces and efficiently put them together, you do have a solution. So people, employees don't need to focus on every individual need of an employee. The employer, the wise one, however, needs to know what are the top 10 drivers for each individual on their team. And I mean individual specific 10 drivers for an employee. And reshuffle the parts of their role within the team so that each of your team members has at least 7 or 8 out of their top 10 applied. Now you reshuffle those responsibilities within the team and you will be protected from the great reshuffle. So where people are leaving in search for a more fulfilling role elsewhere, perhaps with greater flexibility as well. So how do we marry those personal needs and of an individual and the business need for productivity and success? Well, a straightforward answer, specifics. I would say you want to start with an individual. You can look at 34 aspects that are very unique in their own talent profiles. You can see how specifically they can add value to the team and how to best stimulate and encourage their interaction within the team. And therefore you can optimize that team interaction. This is extremely precise. Just the top 5 aspects of a profile of an individual are so unique that for one to have the same profile as the other, the chances are the top 5, the chances are 1 to 33 million. Thinking about it, it's more than 3 times the size of London. And we're not even talking about the entire profile of an individual. Yet many companies are treating these employees all equally. This is where we're really missing out. And this is where we are not able to deliver on meeting those personal needs for them to be engaged, to stay, not to leave the workplace we have been trying to create and build for those individuals. The second important aspect is to really create a team talent matrix. Here you look at 4 specific areas. and how the teams really manage to fulfill the business needs collectively. Now, with effective application of what I mentioned, you could see up to 24% lower turnover in high turnover organizations. You can see 17% higher productivity and up to 21% higher profitability. So I think it's really worth looking into understanding the individual talent DNA and the team talent matrix.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, that was great. The second question that we're going to get into is the fact that nuances or complexities, let's say, in a face-to-face communication are often lost over email. And so it can also be difficult for employees, let's say, to approach their boss in a digital format. Do you think that these issues are genuine concerns? And if you do, how can we overcome them?
Yes, they are a genuine concern. Certainly, email communication means that we are taking the nonverbal part of communication, which means body language and the tone of voice, out of the interaction, which can constitute up to 90% of the message. So for that reason, we really want to double down on the audio-visual interaction, and that should really dominate, especially in the hybrid setting. Email should be more of a supportive aspect than the main focus. This is especially important when it comes to the interaction between the manager and the team member. And this is because when we actually ask people why they're leaving a company, they don't say they don't often talk about the company itself. They talk about the person, the manager. Managers play a critical role. I think there's up to 70% variance in team engagement, which is determined solely by the manager, which is a big stat. So part of what I think companies really need to be concerned about is who they're naming their managers and how are they equipping them to navigate those interactions. Now, the manager struggles the most in this hybrid setting, way more than any other team member, any other employee of a company. So what is needed? First of all, I think manager upskilling for the hybrid interaction. That's number one. Also really to pause and think, how do you actually train the managers? How do they actually learn to be a manager? It's oftentimes done on the role rather than them being trained. So they really do need support. You wouldn't do that with a senior technical leader, right? So why do we do it with managers? So on top of the people-centered training, which is lacking now, they need to also be able to be trained in the hybrid setting. The second aspect that I really wanted to mention here is that managers need to know that there are 5 conversation types to drive performance, and they barely know how to use one, let alone have heard of the other 4. So I think this is also crucial and more so now in the hybrid setting. And third, they need to build effective rapport. So we really need to train here both the manager and the employee in connective communication so that they actually can build genuine rapport and then they feel comfortable addressing issues. And again, this is something that you can incorporate into the team interactions within half a year and see really positive, measurable changes.
Wonderful. That's very interesting. And it's a perfect segue into our next question, talking about Teams and Zoom fatigue. And when we're talking about, digital communications, face-to-face communications over video, what can we do about Teams and Zoom fatigue? And businesses need to operate remotely, but what do we do when burnout in this way is so prevalent?
Mm-hmm. So Zoom fatigue and burnout, in my view, should not be equated. Data is showing that actually burnout is not prevalent due to remote working. It is actually the remote working in most cases that help alleviate the so present issue for many, which is burnout. To address Zoom Teams fatigue, you want to do this together with the team. First, I think it's important to discuss the roadblocks to excellence with the team when it comes to this type of interaction. Secondly, get the team involved, meaning, remote, as I mentioned earlier, remote work is hardest for the manager. And for that reason, managers should consider really moving some of their culture building responsibility to their teams. Managers can use, state of the team format to facilitate conversations about how the team wants to work together. You want to make it special. Of course, there's those aspects of providing food, drinks, and encouraging people to really interact in a slightly different setting. But you also want to bring in creativity and playfulness so that people are, they're able to focus and then don't feel tired when they get to interact in this kind of setting. And perhaps also encourage your team members to chair some of those meetings. Of course, there you need to equip them with examples and you need to be able to train them how to, but I think many of them can feel really engaged and even more connected to their team. And naturally, last but not least, I would say you really want to ensure that you actually get the make most out of the office interaction. Make it meaningful and substantial. Don't call them back into the office just to sit on another Zoom meeting.
Wonderful. That makes a lot of sense. So that will take us on to our final question, which is about mentoring schemes and other one-on-one employee interactions. And typically, these interactions aim to foster rapport and strengthen private communication between coworkers, like you were saying. So what is the best way of mitigating some of these issues, and how can we sort of best implement mentoring schemes and one-on-one employee interactions?
Mm-hmm. So I'll preface with saying that when we talk PEVC, private equity and venture capital, we know that 90% of the post-merger deals fail due to human capital. So it really is important to invest wisely into your team members. And for that, you want to be looking for a very tailored, but at the same time efficient solution. You want to tap into the external resources as well as create a structured internal training. So specific focus is to be definitely on the manager, especially given the shift stimulated by COVID. So really invest into the manager development programs at work. Crucial. I cannot, stress that enough. Understand that the individual DNA is crucial in helping fulfill their needs. They will genuinely want to stay within the team where they are more applied, better understood, where they feel heard, seen, and understood, right? So for that very reason, you can have a very specific, extremely accurate picture of what they're looking for. Then you want to look at the team talent grid. Again, this is, I mentioned it earlier, it's something that is used by a significant number of the Fortune 500 companies to build high-performing teams. So I think we can all benefit from that. And, with a team matrix, you get to see where people clash as a team, where they get along, what are their gaps so that you know who else to hire or what else to perhaps outsource. And it can really serve you profoundly and for a very long time, I would say for decades, depending on how long these people are staying with you. And last but not least, remember that people are emotional beings with logic, not logical people with emotion. And for that reason, training them in connective communication will not only help their needs to be met, but to avoid a team relationship erosion situation and for them to feel more connected to the team. This will also help you with the quiet quitting. So there is much to be said on the subject, but perhaps that's all I wanted to share today.
Perfect. Well, we can save that for another time. But that was so wonderful, Lucia. Thank you. And again, you can see Lucia on day 3 of the Fund Operator Summit Live on the 17th of November in London. And she's on the Fund HR Talent and Inclusion Forum. And her panel speaks from 12:50 to 1:30 p.m. And it's on addressing individual visibility in a remote world. And you can also find more information on our website, clearpathanalysis.com. That will be all for now. Thank you so much, Lucia. It was wonderful to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Maya, and I look forward to seeing you all on that day.